Welcome back. Yes, we're focusing on security situation in the country at the moment. There's several cases, so we'll hope to just pick as many as we can as we progress today. We have Mr. Bolarin Watubosin here with us, a security consultant. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, yes, they're going on with this operation Puff Adder, and they're hoping to get as much result as possible. But we have seen some headlines. Government blaming traditional rulers, bandits controlling 8 camps, over 3,000 killed, villages affected. And, you know, there are those who will ask the question, look, these operations that we keep launching time and again, and this, some may call it temporary reprieve that we seem to have at the moment. Do you see this being sustained to the extent that, yes, it will address the security challenge we have, not just in Zamfara State now, but several parts of the country?
Yeah, unfortunately, whatever form of insecurity we are facing now, sadly, has cut across the country. So if we're talking about kidnapping, we start all the way from the northeast down to Ekpe Expressway in Lagos. Talking about kidnapping on the express road, which is not robbery this time. We're talking about the stretch of the road from all the way from Kaduna to Ukene, which is one stretch of the road with vast lands. And I think if we are going to, we shouldn't just be looking at operations alone now. Yes, the operations supposed to deal with a specific problem. Operation is not something that comes and stays. It's temporary, it must have an objective mission, and that mission must be accomplished. Unfortunately, the way things turn out, if I look at the case of Kaduna-Abuja Expressway, the first time we saw an increase or that it came to limelight was when the airport, Abuja Airport, was being renovated.
Even though it's been happening before?
Before then, but it came into limelight, and it got the attention of the Force Headquarters. And the then DIG operation went there to claim that they've started. So I put a question through to some higher authorities in the police to ask, what changed? What happened to the operation about 18 months ago? They were able to give me an explanation which matched my own analysis, that the issue of sustainability of an operation will also depend on budgeting for that operation. Because when you hear operation, it's different from general police duty.
So does this, from your interaction with several of them, does this address the question as to why does it always appear as though we're caught unawares that we can't handle these cases?
Yes and no. From my interaction with them, I went deeper beyond them this time around to find out, okay, what is the problem? Don't forget that the force, the army, the police, and everybody are on their own, and there are other agencies that are supposed to be feeding, sustaining, and providing resources for them. You see, the reality we need to face is that whatever position or whatever organization you work for, if you are not given the resources to sustain your activities, it's going to be an exercise in futility. And I think in the case of the Nigerian police currently, if I'm going to be sincere, I think the issue of budgeting and the issue of stability of leadership is really affecting how they carry out and sustain an operation.
Isn't that tantamount to us throwing money at the problem?
No. It's not throwing money at the problem.
Because they've always had budgets year on year.
They've always had budget. But one thing we have failed to look at is that what budget did they apply for and what was given to them? I have never looked at that when I started pointing at, accusing and blaming fingers at them. But in the last 6 months, what I've been made to do was that documents were laid on the table where they asked for 100 billion naira, for instance, for the budget for the year. Don't forget that this budget that they are asking for is for incidents that are not yet here. Okay, so we never knew in January that we're going to have the problem we're having in Zamfara today.
Now, is this budget responsible for the attitude of the policemen we see on the roads that interact with the people on a regular basis?
Technically, yes.
How?
Technically, yes. How? The resources the police officer need all the way from zone, command, division, posts needs some sort of resources. I've had to deal with several cases where police don't even have stationaries. For instance, I did a check around most of the divisions, and I realized that the budget allocation to most DPOs, divisions, is 15,000 naira per month. Now, 15,000 naira is not going to sustain my own home for a week. Not to talk of the Red House police station in Ijuishaga, that the population of that same local government, that same town, has been 2.1 million since 1995.
In other words, it's justified for them to carry out the way they relate to Nigerian citizens on the road on a regular basis.
It is not justified. It is not justified for you to tax members of the public, collect bribe, shoot them when they don't pay you bribe for it. Take your battle back to where it is. And I think the current administration is doing that. I'm aware that they've just had I'm aware that the IGP, for the first time, rejected a budget cut. You asked them to take them back. That don't bother giving us budget if you are going to cut what we asked for. And I think that's a step in the right direction. And I also know that they've gone back to the Senate Committee on...
Yeah, but Mr. Atubosun, look, with due respect to both of them, you don't expect to present a budget that nobody asks questions. They've got to be asked questions. Budget will always be, they will look into it time and again.
As Nigeria, Kimberly, one question we really need to ask ourselves about security and insecurity is that it doesn't come cheap. In other countries that we want to be like,
even
or that we want to compare.
Even the police officers in those countries say their pay is not what they want, but they get fantastic results.
We're not talking about pay now. We are talking about the resources for you to perform.
Resources, budgetary, pay is all funding.
It's all funding, but to move. Now, let me tell you the way it works in the UK. For every patrol vehicle deployed to attend to an incident, do you know it costs? The wear and tear on the vehicle, the cost of getting the vehicle to that place.
Okay, so now they haven't presented a budget, have they? They're operating with the last budget. They haven't, have they?
They have. I think that is.
Have they approved a new budget for them now, this year?
I don't think so, no.
They've not. Why are we having Operation Puff Adder? Why are they getting results right now, all of a sudden? Meanwhile, this has been happening, this kidnap has been happening, this banditry in some states has been happening, but they haven't approved the new budget yet, but they're having results.
Okay.
From what we're reporting here, isn't that the case?
I wouldn't want to accept what we're reading in the face of a newspaper as a result. And I think it is too early for us to say here on record.
Should we play the report from the IGP? IGP has spoken about the gains that they're achieving already as a result of Operation Puff Adder, the measures they announced. They've not approved the budget, but they're getting some results.
Yeah, there are interventions that comes in when it comes to this kind of situation. There are places they could go to say, okay, this is an emergency. This is coming up. It needs to be sustained. And I think there are security intervention funds all over the places. Don't forget, the states where these things are happening have security votes. They get the support of the governor at times. Sometimes they get to go to central
And the president announced a salary increase for the police officers recently.
Yes.
Didn't they?
I think we seem to be mixing something up here, which I would like us to clarify. The police pay and remuneration of any sort and the resources the police need to carry out their duty are two different things that we shouldn't be mixing
together. If you get the
together.
resources you need and you don't get well paid, won't it affect your morale?
It will affect your morale.
So there's no difference. They were talking about.
At the end of the day, the incident will continue mounting. Myself and yourself, we like to talk about it, criticize where necessary, praise and send appraisals where necessary. So it means that these resources, in order to sustain this, right? You see, the issue now is whatever it is that the IG has gone to launch in Zamfara and they are still going to Katsina and other places this morning. It's not about what they have started. It is about sustaining what they have started. And sustaining what they have started, sustaining what they have started has got a lot to do with the available finance to sustain that.
Is their strategy working? Because the IGP is in Zamfara and is meeting with the stakeholders, including the traditional rulers, which the government says are in cahoot with the bandits. So how then can this strategy of meeting in a town hall meeting, what results will come out from that? Okay,
I'm aware that there is a professor who is currently working with the Office of Inspector General of Police. He was my colleague all the way from UK, and I know his efficacy He has listened to me on TV. He has invited me to show me some documents. All I can say about this document now, if we are able to sustain it, or if they are able to sustain the program, calling in an expert who is not in uniform is a bonus, which I want to appreciate the current administration for. That is one. Secondly, trying to meet the people who are the stakeholders and who are affected, from whom they are expecting intelligence to deal with this, is also a step in the right direction if they can sustain it. You see, the policing of the 21st century is not about carrying gun and deploying artilleries.
If I understand what you're saying, pardon me to jump in again, yep. It means that the police authorities launched an operation they are not sure they will sustain.
I can boldly say to you on record that there is no operation anywhere in the world that those who started it can be sure of the outcome. I'm talking about generally security terms now.
Sustaining it.
Sustaining it.
That's what we're talking about.
No, sustaining, they must have had some promises. The states where these things are happening are in trouble. For instance, in Kogi State, I saw a whole town, living town.
Yeah, we'll play the report soon.
And to start living in an IDP camp. The town is becoming a ghost town.
What guarantee? What guarantee? What guarantee is there that when these Operation Substance Daji now has been launched? Mm-hmm. We have Puff Ada. Mm-hmm. We've got so many other ones. Is it that the lifespan starts and then ends, but then you have a resurgence again, and then they have to go back to it, and it will seem to suggest to anyone watching, that this is a money spinner?
Well, it looks so, and it calls for concern at the beginning, and that brought about a lot of questions from me to the people in authority to ask that, okay, is this a culture that we're going to sustain? Is this how things are going to continue? And I was very, very particular about what happened to the last operations that were launched in all this area, all previous operations. And the question, when I put the question to them, what came back to me with some proofs was that, one, instability of leadership, two, the resources to sustain,
what do you
which
mean
is not
instability of leadership. What is
for instance, now, between 2010 and now, I think we must have changed the leadership of the Nigerian Police Force, for instance, almost 7 times. You see, each of this time, when you hear that an IG is going down, it takes DIGs, AIGs, and some key officers down with them. That was a motion. That is a problem that we're trying to get the government to look at, that when you are changing service chiefs for any reason, try and look at it from strategic point of view as well, that you are taking a whole structure down and another structure we have to start with the fear of trying to get it right.
Do we need these structures in place, Mr. Bolaniwa, to sustain a system? Because it will suggest, from what you're saying, it will suggest that the police doesn't have a plan. Consequently, every government of the police, every administration of the police has to come up with its own plan. Doesn't that suggest that there is no plan, no security, no sustainable security plan, long-term security plan for Nigeria?
Yeah, I will want to a certain extent, agree with you on that. And I want to believe that after a lot of crying out loud from people like myself, yourself, I am aware that the police currently are trying, they've recognized this as a problem, and they are working on a sustainable blueprint that is going to get the approval of the executive in order for... Sorry?
Is that what the IG says?
No, that's not what the IG says. That's what the information I got from...
Meaning that it's not a question of leadership change?
Well, the question of leadership change, or the problem that leadership changes has created, is something that we have cried out for.
Well, you just talked about it now, that because there was no plan, now they recognize that that is the problem. So now they're trying to get a plan such that you can institutionalize it and not being about the single person.
One single person.
Which is what the problem is, from what you just agreed to.
So now they're trying to solve that problem now, and I hope they are able to sustain that so that we don't come back to square one again.
What are we dealing with now? Because they call them bandits in control of 8 camps, over 3,000 killed, and that's what the Zamfara State governor has been howling about. But what are we dealing with? Is this Boko Haram? When you look at especially the style at which they carry out these attacks, they move with the same kind of clout, same number of the traction, so many of them moving at once and then going into a place and taking over the place and move to another, take over the place. And then the government forces will have to go strategize to try to see that they come and take over again. So are we dealing with Boko Haram?
Well, if you ask me from my expert point of view, I think we started going wrong the moment we started creating different names for different problems we are facing. If you ask me...
You mean like all the operations launched?
No, not the operation launch. This means that we have problem with Boko Haram, then suddenly we say we're having problem with Fulani, or let's say headsmen. Then suddenly from headsmen, we started talking about bandits. Then from bandits, I don't know where we're going to go.
So
but the point I'm trying to make now is I want to carefully look at the correlation between terrorism, what terrorism entails, and to be able to decide whether, as at the time where we are saying headsmen, bandits, we are actually dealing with terrorism. Whether it is done by Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, whatever name we want to call them, but we're still having terrorism. And I want to agree with Umar on that could be where our mistake is coming from, and I want to appeal to the government to please look inward and review the way they tag the problem we're facing. Boko Haram, or terrorist group, needs money. They need food. They need cows to survive. They need food from farmlands to survive. They want to collect cow and also sell cow in order to raise money to sustain their operation.
So why is the government now saying that the traditional rulers, as a matter of fact, they have said it on all the dailies this morning, the traditional rulers, they're pointing fingers at them saying that you guys are in cahoots with these bandits and you're carrying out these dastardly acts. How then do we rely on this information when we've not even heard from not one traditional ruler has come out to say that, yes, we did this, or no, we did not?
Okay. From my point of view and from the information I've been able to gather so far, I was able to realize that the miners, in order to sabotage the effort of the government not to pay what they are supposed to pay, they don't want government to know how much they are mining and all this, and there is no proper record, seems to be the one empowering militants to be causing mayhem in the area, because as you can see, it has not been recorded that any of the foreign miners has been kidnapped in this region. It's so strange that none of them has been kidnapped, but the people who are supposed to benefit, whose community are supposed to be empowered as a result of getting certain resources in their community, seems to be the one that are becoming victims. And that makes everybody with an investigative ability to look deeply into exactly what is happening. Yes, you can come out and allege and make allegation against traditional rulers. When you make allegation, you must have information to back it up. I want to check the account of every traditional rulers. How rich are they? What are they doing?
Let me bring this in. Yeah. Speaking about information, you know, when you said that we need to be careful, or the authorities need to be careful how they tag the challenges that we face. Now, this statement ascribed to the Zamfara State governor, calling them bandits. So, does that suggest them, because they receive a lot of security reports, intelligence reports, as chief executives of their states, are you suggesting that they are some way or somehow withholding the right adjective or information and then tagging them wrongly? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm suggesting. I want to check. So when you talk about intelligence reports, it also asks quality. Who put it together? Does it have political undertone? Are you tagging it in order to sustain the type of political undertone you want to create? We saw what happened in Benue. We saw how the Minister for Defense suddenly came out and started speaking for cattle colony.
But that is not a security report, is it?
It's not a security report, but I wouldn't want to accept any security report from a politician.
No.
Without proper analysis of it.
No,
like I said to you earlier on, there is no security report. Every information that comes to you must go through the verification framework. You understand?
Let me understand this. Because when it is not politicians submitting security report to politicians, it is security agencies like the DSSs and the NIA. Those are the people who submit security reports to governors and presidents, isn't it?
Well, the question I want to ask you now.
No, isn't that the way it works?
That is how it's supposed to work. But my query and my question and my concerns now is that when an executive governor submits a security report, I've always seen some sort of disparities that the agency, the overall agency, so let me say the Zamfara state government now brought out a security report.
That's not how
where did it come from?
No.
Do
what
we
I'm
get
saying,
a corresponding and corroborating vice versa from the general report from the DSS to the nation?
No, well, that's
and from the police to the
I think
nation?
that's a different thing. What I'm saying is, when the governor comes up and he's quoted as calling those bandits, you said they need to be careful how they tag them, suggesting they tag them wrongly.
Yes.
And I then said, but they get security intelligence reports from those government agencies, security agencies. And when they get them, I did ask you, does he tag it wrongly? You said yes.
Yes.
So how?
And I'm going to give you one good example. On the 15th of January, or the 15th of February, a day before the last general election was cancelled, the Kaduna State governor came out to say with his own mouth that 166 or 66 Fulani headsmen, 66 Fulani men has just been killed in Kajuru. When he was saying that, he was standing in front of the governor's office. There was no policeman or DSS. I want to query where he got that report from. Then 2 weeks later, I also want us to look and shed light on what the CP now came out to deny.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to this in a moment. We need to go to break, but we'll come back. Don't go. All right, welcome back. So that report was before the news filtered in that the kidnapped fire service chief and the others have been released. So that gave us some sort of background concerning what transpired. But looking at that report, I mean, the police said, they deployed massive resources to ensure that all of those eventually got the kind of results that we had. So what lessons do you think were there for us?
The first lesson is that we need to get to a place where we have all these things ready. It shouldn't be when there is problem that we will be deploying resources. So we need to move the police and every other security agencies from a reactive organization to become a proactive organization. And how do we become a proactive organization? Police on its own cannot become a proactive organization without carrying other sisters and in partnership with other agencies along. Let's talk about the roads now that is being used as kidnapping spot, hotspot all over Nigeria. You will realize that there is something synonymous to most of those roads. There are bushes left and right of those roads. That gives room for people to hide. And we are talking about that we need land for cattle ranches, cattle colonies, and everything. Can we start clearing those roads, having up to 1 kilometer to the left and 1 kilometer to the right cleared, and be used as farmland or even pasture growing area for cattle to move? If the bushes are there, they are clearing the shrubs in Ikorodu now, as we can see. This is rainy season. I can assure you before the end of the rainy season, the bush are going to go up. Are the Ministry of Agriculture in Lagos State and the Ministry of Environment, will they step in Because it's not the police or the army that will be clearing the bush that criminals are getting into.
Yeah, but you can advise them to get security details or security reports again about what was going to happen. But speaking about that, before we went to break, you were making a point about security reports, what the governor of Kaduna said at the time. What was the point you were making?
That was a very, very typical example of the disparity between the security report coming from the right authority, which is the police and DSS, and what the governors may want to say for his own political gain. So it was clearly stated, the CP of the state came out on dailies, on newspapers, and on TV to say that the governor was warned against publishing, saying what he said. Up till today, they have not been able to show us for that particular incident of the 15th of February. There was no grieving families. Nobody has been able to come out of the assumed...
Which area is this?
Kajuru.
Have you been following the news about reports?
There has been incident
the
which was suspected when a governor came out and mentioned that a particular tribe has been killed. Definitely you should expect a kind of reprisal attack, and that's what we're getting now. That is what we fear. That is why we criticize the governor. And that is why the CP came out to say, from the professional point of view, the information that the governor came to give out that day was false. It cannot be verified. And that's...
How did you say it was false? Did you follow much later to see that... did you see the part where some army officers accompanied the governor to that particular base? Do you know how long it takes to get from the capital to the area? Did you factor all of those into your solution?
all of those in, and there's something we were expecting after all those journey, all those shows we saw on the TV, that we should be able to have a list of who died. Malam this, Mr. Das. I don't know, maybe you have those lists. I don't. I've been waiting for that. You see, invincible people, non-existent.
Have you asked for the
list? We have asked for the list. The governor promised that he's coming out with a list of people who died. You see, from the governor's office, an incomplete information that can lead to further crisis shouldn't be coming out. And I think the governor should be investigated for this and sanctioned if possible.
Well, there's been several reports by our correspondents there, but about what exactly transpired. I mean, we've spoken to several people who have called saying at that time too, where they had misgivings, but much later, the government has spoken concerning what they think happened and why they thought people misunderstood what the governor said and did. But look, that's a different thing. We don't want to go in and open the wounds
it sheds more light on the quality of reports.
There are several. Talking about. There's several in terms of what has happened. We can't just pick one. It will be out of context if you don't believe there are several reports that has been done about several incidents there. So it may be misleading if I just focus on one and not all the others. So with due respect to everyone who's concerned about that, let me move to this particular one in Kogi. For instance, we also do have the reports where a recent one, as a matter of fact, where residents in the state are fleeing because they got information that armed herdsmen were coming to attack them. And so they had to flee for their lives. So that also adds a litany of cases where there are security challenges or problems, if you will, across the country. Yeah. And why many are asking, why does it always appear as though we can't handle these cases?
Okay, Nigeria is a very, very vast, let me put it, community. And unfortunately, known to you and I, development. That is infrastructure needed, communication infrastructure, road infrastructure, policing infrastructure has not been spread enough to take care of this problem. I travel through Kogi most of the time. I wouldn't advise other people to travel the way I travel because I use my security knowledge to know when to stop. When I'm driving on a stretch of road and there's no car following me and I didn't meet any car coming from me.
I thought you go by air.
No, well, I'm not supposed to give you that intelligence on how.
That's intelligence about you traveling by air.
I don't go by air most of the time. 95% of my journey across Nigeria, in order for me to do my job the way I'm supposed to do it, are terrestrial. Because we don't see anything from here. We don't see the police, we don't see the positioning of police, the army, and everything. So in order for me to be a good security expert, I have to be on ground to see what is happening. It is painful, it is more expensive than here, but in order for me to continue to do what I do for a living, I think land journey is what I practice, and that is where I get most of my information from. So like the case of Kogi that you asked, Kogi is vast. And looking at the spread of police across Kogi, I've traveled from Ekiti down to Obajana. I've also traveled from Ekiti Kaba down to Okene, where the stretch of the express ends. And it all comes down to one same problem. Most of what kidnappers, armed robbers, terrorists use are the power of anonymity and the power of surprise. They get people, catch people unaware. A moving vehicle cannot be stopped if it could see a danger coming. You understand? A good driver can turn back. A good driver can go over the barrier and still continue to do this. But where the road is bad and you are negotiating potholes and everything, that is where the criminals do hide and come out and surprise you. And that's why I'm saying that the issue that is happening in all those places is not only the security agency issues. Things need to be put in place to allow people to move. Yeah, in human intelligence is one area where every government, be it local, state, or federal, should help the security agencies.
Factor in the human intelligence you just talked about now with trust. Do the people trust the police? Because in Kogi, as we speak, from the report that we just mentioned to you, people are fleeing their homes because they heard that herdsmen are coming, clearly, or that some people are coming to attack them. Clearly, that means, look, we are not sure that the security apparatus of state can protect us, so they are fleeing their homes. Okay. So, intelligence versus trust.
Okay. When we talk about trust, I personally want to accept that there is no enough trust from the members of the public to the place.
And we can't blame it on the budget.
We cannot blame that on the budget. We can blame that on certain strategies that has not been sustained. And that is why I pray and I hope that the town hall meeting that the IG is holding about is also sustained by the DIGs, the AIGs, the CP, the area commander, the DPUs. Don't just stop at what your IG has done. You two go out and reach out to the people and get information in. Today, most of the DPOs don't want to leave their office because there is air conditioning and there is cable TV for them to be looking. So more of them are sitting in. I see no reason why your IG, right, have to fly from his office in Abuja to your state and you have no intelligence to give him or to take care of the operation. You to practice what the IG do.
Are you generalizing that that's what happens across the country?
I'm not generalizing that that's what happened. I'm giving praises to some fantastic DPOs, area commander, and CPs that I know that are doing a fantastic job. But in order to build the
How
trust...
come we don't see these fantastic results?
Sorry?
Do we see this fantastic job of the results of the fantastic job you speak about? Okay,
somebody said something which I'm going to say to you now. I have traveled some places to get here today. By God's grace and by the security apparatus that has been put in place, I got here safely. You see, a fire chief.
Which security
wait. A fire chief was not as fortunate as myself about 5-6 days down the line. So I'm not saying we're there yet, but as a patriotic Nigerian who has nowhere else to go, I also want to be careful about the way I criticize the available resources that I have now so that I don't kill the institution while attacking the men of the institution for their inadequacies.
Mr. Balano, you were saying something really good the other time. I'd like you to complete that thought. You said, that you agree that there is a problem of trust between the people and the police.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It's a universal thing because I've lived in other parts of the world.
Focus on Nigeria's zone.
No. See, we're talking about apathy. Then when we talk about the Nigerian one that you want me to focus on too, I also want to think that there's more work to be done by the police in terms of public relations, in terms of inclusive projects. It is not only about carrying. Inclusive project is a project that is set up and sustained where you reach out to the people and educate the people about their expectation, your expectation of the people, how the people can make your work
How come
better.
you haven't spoken about what the VP said? That look, you can't police a country the size of Nigeria centrally from Abuja. He thinks this is the root of some of these challenges, trust, several challenges that we face today.
That is part of what I believe has been looked at in the last 3 years. We are hoping the federal government, if the vice president can be saying it, is in a position to work on the president to appeal or put motion in place where the police force, the police operation is going to be decentralized.
What do you think should be done about the security architecture? Because these bandits, they seem to be migrating. They have hit Katsina, they have hit Zamfara, they've hit Kaduna. They might be hitting Jos, they might be hitting Sokoto. In Sokoto, they are called marauders. What must the security architecture do now, just so that we're able to stop this seeming migration of these bandits?
One of the first things they need to do is to enhance and empower the communication link between the police or between the security agencies generally and the people. Create a link where people can reach you with information. That is one. Secondly, they also need to get the end result of every operation. At the end of this operation, how many people have been arrested? Have they been charged to court? What price are they paying that is going to send signal to others as deterrent? So for instance, now in the case of terrorism, we've not seen the number of terrorists that has been charged to court, has been sentenced, but we're seeing the number of terrorists that are being reintegrated back into the society. You see, you are giving the would-be terrorist the opportunity or the knowledge that it can still be well with them after everything. So I think if you say, for instance, in the case of electoral offenses, that people are snatching ballot boxes and they were arrested, how many have been arraigned in court? How long is it going to take for them to be sentenced to send a signal to the would-be electoral offender in the nearest future? So I want to see how many terrorists do we have in court in the last 5 years? How is the court case going? How many have been sentenced to death? And I think the security agencies really need, it's not only about arresting, flogging, and doing all these things we're seeing on social media. Take them through the legal framework, the judiciary, and let them pay for the price of what they have done. And I think that is going to send a clear signal to all the problems we're having. Our problem is getting wider every day. We're having the Yahoo Plus boy, we're having ritualists, and I think the security agencies generally need to rise up to these challenges and ensure that they take the benefit away from the crime.
All right, Olatubo Sanbola, our security consultants, thank you for your thoughts this morning.
Thank you.
Well, let's head now to Magba in Abuja.